living people that are barricaded up there trying to survive, because it makes sense, it's logical, because you have weapons, you have supplies, you have food. But why are the dead people going there? You know, that's kind of Romero's comment on it. I don't want to try to interpret those things too much, because I'm not real down with that. People really need to watch these films and make their own interpretations. I mean, that's where the true power of it comes from. And so Dawn of the Dead, when I actually watched Dawn of the Dead, believe it or not, it was the second film that I watched in the series, because I was just interested in horror films. There comes a certain point where no matter what subgenre you're a fan of, in my particular case it was slasher films, that you kind of consume all the slasher films you can watch. You've seen all Friday the 13th, you know, you've seen Happy Birthday to Me, you've seen, you know, April Fool's Day, you've seen The Prowler, you've seen The Burning, you know, I mean, you've tracked them all down, and then you go, okay, well, I still like horror films, you know, let me see something else. What do slasher films have that might be found in these other films? You know, gore is one element of it, and when you hear about things being gory, you know, films that have a reputation for being gory and scary, you know, one of those films that pops up is Dawn of the Dead. It was one of those films that really started the basically what became the gore phase, and gore became the catchword, the buzzword of horror films for years and years and years, because of Romero and Savini's film, and that gore and the effects in Dawn of the Dead. As a film itself, Dawn of the Dead runs a little bit long, but just in terms of just bombarding the viewer with kind of a visceral imagery and just the constant attack of the senses, you know, Dawn of the Dead is quite an experience. And you know, as I was saying earlier about there being the political subtext, you know, that always makes each viewing, you know, richer when you have those things laid underneath. So again, you've got Romero hitting us another 10 out of 10 right out of the park. You know, it's very rare that you get an original film to a series and a sequel being of such high quality. The third Romero film I saw, believe it or not, was Day of the Dead. Now, I think at this point I was probably actually working in a video store for a little while when I found out about Day of the Dead. And the first time I watched it, it was so bleak and just so dark. I really didn't like it. I mean, it's one of those films, like so many, that might go against your expectations to a certain extent. You go in expecting something not necessarily happy or campy or whatever, but maybe a little more enlightening, you know, of the human condition, and not so terribly nihilistic and so bleak, and basically you have such a downer ending, which in a lot of ways Day of the Dead does. But so for my initial viewing of Day of the Dead, I just really didn't care for it. I was just shocked by it, and in a lot of ways I was horrified by it. And that is a good response. I mean, that's one of the things that a horror filmmaker wants, is they don't always just want to entertain their viewers and, you know, take them on a roller coaster ride. Sometimes they do want to bombard them with imageries and just kind of a sensory overload of ideas of horror, and just kind of assault us in a visceral way where we can really feel it. The first time I watched it, I just wasn't into it, but then when I went back to it, I mean, I was just blown away. The gore effects, the zombie effects, just, again, you got the political subtext, the military against, you know, the people trying to survive, and all this great stuff going on. It works great as an action film, it works great, you know, as a horror film. I mean, I think, you know, it's definitely, as far as the zombie films go, it's the best zombie effects ever, the best gore effects ever. It was Tom Savini's best work. It's definitely one of my favorites. Again, I rated it a 10 out of 10. I think it's pretty much perfect all across the board. Now, when the first time I went to see Land of the Dead, I did get to see it in the theater. It was the first Romero film I was able to see in the theater, because, as I said, I watched the others, you know, over the years. And I liked it, but I didn't think it was great at first. I watched it the weekend that it came out, and I thought it was a good action flick. I thought all the characters were interesting. You know, I love the thing with the smart zombies learning and, you know, and attacking and going through the water, where, you know, I just loved all the things about it, even the political subtext. But it felt like the movie ended before the ending. You know, it's like it stopped and it felt like there was supposed to be something else. So eventually later on I learned that Romero was supposedly setting the film up to do a direct sequel, because at the time zombie films were really hot. He was expected to do a lot of big business. But it was sandwiched in between, like, Pirates of the Caribbean and Spider-Man or something like that. Or maybe it was even Star Wars. I don't remember what they were at the time, but they were huge, you know, mega blockbusters that just totally crushed, you know, Land of the Dead. It had no chance. But a song that has, you know, a refrain put back into it. You're like, oh wait, I never heard this part before. It sounds great. You know, why don't all versions of it have that? And that was my take on the uncut version. I mean, I thought it was really fantastic. I do think I only rated it about a 7 out of 10 because even though I thought the effects were good, I thought the action was good, the humor was good, the characters were good, the acting was good, the zombies looked great, you know, the effects by Nicotero were fantastic. Again, it still had that kind of almost anticlimactic ending because if you go back and look at the other Romero films, you know, pretty much everybody dies in those films, and in this one, everybody was still alive. So I don't know, maybe I've just become nihilistic in my own old age. But so here we are, Diary of the Dead, 3 years later. I'm excited to go see it. We've been blabbing and talking about it for a little while. We're about it in the theater, and